Hello, welcome everyone. I see everyone starting to check in the chat. Awesome. So, thank you for everyone who's here and joining us today live. And also, those of you that are joining us in the recording later, thank you also for being here. My name is Jamie Waggoner, and my pronouns are she and her. And I am a dedicated priestess of the Greek god Hades and an author and a teacher. I wrote the recently released book Hades, Myth, Magic, and Modern Devotion from Llewellyn. It came out in February of 2024. And personally, my interests center around folk magic, mythology, oracular traditions, trance and ritual arts, and building sacred communities. My path is somewhat eclectic. I am not a Hellenistic pagan, I am a modern pagan. And I study many, many things, but I don't teach or belong to a specific pagan or magical tradition. However, I do believe that magic is absolutely real, present all around us, and a profound tool for justice and transformation. So I write and teach from my home studio, which is located in Alabama in the southern United States, which is the ancestral land of the Muskogee people, the people of one fire. And I want to start out by offering honor and gratitude to the Muskogee elders. And I want to acknowledge and affirm that they are sovereign on these lands. And I also invite you as well, if you know the names of the indigenous peoples who have stewarded the lands where you live, honor them by putting their name in the chat. I would love for us to do that. So let's jump in. We're going to begin today with an invocation to Hades, to invite him into our talk, and also by way of offering. And this is actually an invocation from my book. It's from chapter 1. It's on page 25 of the book. And this is the hymn to the unseen one. Hear me, unseen one, you who are eternally cloaked in mist and shadows, invisible to the eye, yet not invisible to the heart. I offer honor and praise to thee called Idoneus. I pray you will watch over me with kindly spirit and stealthy might. I ask you to please protect me as I walk above until I descend below to rest in your fields once more. So my presentation today is Hades. It's not just about death. So I'm going to start out, just in case anybody is watching because they're curious and they don't really know much about Hades, I want to give you just a little overview. So let me go ahead and do that. Here are some images of Hades. So on the left, this is a recreated statue of Hades from the temple at Hierapolis, which is in modern-day Turkey. In the center, you are looking at a kylix or kylix, which is basically a wine cup, and it would be really, really big, and it would have two handles on the sides. And on the outside of this kylix, you have an image of all of the Olympian gods feasting. And when you get down to the bottom of the kylix and all the wine is gone, you would see this image inside of Hades and Persephone enjoying a much more intimate feast. So I don't know if it was on the inside because they are indeed separate from the Olympians, or perhaps you might be in the underworld by drinking that much wine. I'm not sure. But on the right, we have a Roman statue of Pluton, which is from the 1st century Common Era. And Pluton is the Roman equivalent of the Greek god Hades. So just some images for you of how Hades appeared in the ancient world. So Hades is one of three brothers in the ancient Greek pantheon. His brothers are Zeus and Poseidon. So Zeus's domain is the sky. Poseidon rules the seas, and Hades' primary responsibility is to be ruler of the underworld. So Hades keeps the balance between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. One of his many, many epithets, polydegmon, means host of many. And that idea refers to the fact that Hades hosts all of humanity in his realm between lifetimes. And in ancient Greek belief, and certainly in my personal practice, there is the belief in the transmigration of the soul. So you die and are reborn, and die again and are reborn again. So when you're not living, Hades would be your host. So, in addition to the underworld itself, Hades' domain also includes all the riches beneath the surface of the earth. So it includes rocks and gems and silicates and metals and minerals and fertile dark soil. And so it's really because of all of these precious resources, in addition to the abundance of mortal shades that inhabit his realm, Hades is often referred to as the wealthy one or Pluton among the gods. He has many, many epithets. Epithets are basically poetic nicknames that tell you a little bit more about his personality and some of the things that he is responsible for. Some of them include Idoneus, which is where we get Aedes, which became Hades, which means the unseen one. Also, we have Eucaides, which means the beautiful haired one. It refers to descriptions of Hades where he has thick, dark, curly hair and beard, kind of like a black sheep's wool. Klyminos, the notorious. This is Hades' epithet that refers to his abduction of Persephone. And he's often referred to as Klyminos in the mysteries of Demeter and Persephone. Eubuleus, which means good counselor or consoler. It refers to the fact that he offers good counsel and consoles all of the souls that come to rest in his realm. Adamastos refers to the fact that he is unyielding and unbreakable in reinforcing the rules of his realm, which he kind of has to be because he in his role of keeping the balance, he has to prevent everything descending into chaos, and that is reinforcing the rules and being pretty strict about the boundaries. And also, a little known epithet of Hades is Orcos, which refers to Hades as the avenger of oaths or the avenger of those who have been unjustly treated. So that gives you a little more insight into different aspects of his personality. So there are some very common misconceptions about Hades. Many, many people mistakenly assume that Hades is the god of death or a supernatural being who comes to claim you at the end of your life, but that's not true. There is actually another being named Thanatos, who is a winged daemon, and he works for Hades, but he's actually the one that comes to bring your mortal shade to the shores of the river Styx. Likewise, Hades has no control over the length of a lifetime or the chosen hour of death for any given individual. That responsibility belongs to another trio who live in the underworld, but they're called the Moirai, and sometimes they're known as the Fates. And the Moirai consist of three sisters. There's Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. So Clotho, she has a distaff in her hand, and she presides over the moment that we're born. Lachesis, she works the spindle, so she turns out the hours and days of our lives. And the last sister, Atropos, she is the eldest, and she ends the thread of our mortal life by cutting it with a pair of scissors. So Hades is most definitely more like the executive administrator or the host of the underworld, much more so than a judge or a punisher of the dead. He usually delegates responsibilities of judgment and sentencing to a different trio of underworld judges named Iacchos, Rhadamanthus, and Minos, who at one point in time were mortals themselves. Or sometimes, if it's a particularly difficult question, he will rely on his wife, on the Queen Persephone, to help him out with the judgment call. So it's a really interesting aspect of the underworld. And the last misconception, which I think is also very, very common, is that Hades is the devil and the underworld is hell. And this is simply untrue. There's a lot of reasons why this occurred over the time, but it's kind of a scenario of lost in translation. There's misrepresentations, mistranslations. There's the influence of literary works in the early modern period, like Dante's Inferno and John Milton's Paradise Lost. And a lot of these things led to this misconception, but in reality, the ancient Greek and Christian mythos are not equivalent at all. So just to kind of give you a little bit of insight into that. So let's talk about the magic and the mystery of the underworld. After all, that's kind of why we're here. Why would we want to work with Hades? So let's dive in. So why work with Hades? There are some obvious answers. If you have a vocation or an interest that draws you to the mysteries of death and dying, right? You could be someone who is a death midwife, a celebrant of sorts. You could be working in the funeral industry. You could be working in the medical industry. You could be working as an EMT or a paramedic. Your vocation could be taking care of cemeteries. There are so many industries that involve death that we don't normally think about. And that could draw you to these energies, right? Because it has to do with your vocation. Also, if you're someone that works a lot with ghosts, or if you're involved in psychopomp work, I mean, I think that all of those things sort of would put you in the realm of working with Hades and the underworld. And of course, if mediumship or necromancy is part of your magical practice, mediumship being communicating with the dead and necromancy being doing magic with the dead, of course, you would want to interact with Hades in the underworld. And also, if you're just someone who resonates with these type of very deep and chthonic, like very earthy energies. So those are the things that you might think about. So let's talk about some of the not so obvious answers, right? Okay. The not so obvious answers. So, if you want to cultivate a sense of what wealth really means to you and learn how to appreciate it and welcome more of it into your life, Hades can certainly help you with that. So, we're talking about his aspect as Pluton. He is known as the wealthy one. And wealth can look like a lot of things, right? It doesn't necessarily mean a lot of money in your pocket, 3 cars in your driveway or anything like that. Like, what does wealth really mean? Like, how do I feel, that I have abundance in my life? Hades can really help you sort of cultivate that knowing and work magic to welcome more of it into your life. The second reason you might want to work with him that's not so obvious is if you want really powerful and protective unseen allies. So, not just Hades, but a lot of the beings in the underworld are highly protective if you spend the time to cultivate a relationship with them, right? So, and they can be a bit intimidating to approach at first, but I've found in my own practice and through speaking with others that they are open to relationship and in give and take and the sense of charis, or I give so that you may give. Um, and because they are so intimidating, when you're surrounded with all of these allies, there's a lot that really gets through to come at you. So that's a really, really nice aspect of Hades and his retinue in the underworld. If you want assistance with shadow work, Hades and the other denizens of the underworld, they very much understand the nuance of shadow work. Your shadow work, the collective's shadow work. Hades even has an epithet, kliminos, that refers to sort of that notorious aspect of his personality. So you might want to ask him, how do I dive into shadow work on those levels? But there's more. I think there is even more that you might want to work with him on. So, some more not so obvious answers of why you work with Hades is if you want to become adept at invisibility and glamour magic. So, Hades has the helm of invisibility, it's one of his attributes. And it's this magical sort of, it looks almost like you'd think a Trojan or a Spartan helmet would look if you see the movies and you see the soldiers wearing these things. Hades slips it on and he becomes invisible. Sometimes in myths, he loans it out to other people, but it always resides with him in the underworld. So he can help you with invisibility magic and knowing, having the discernment to know when to be visible and to actually, step forward and speak out, and when to kind of hang back and sort of observe from the shadows. He can help you learn those nuances. He can also help you with glamour. So Hades is the wealthy one. And in my experience with him, Hades loves bling. He loves like sort of this like Venus and Taurus sort of scenario where you've got luscious fabric and you've got, whatever it means. Like bling doesn't have to be expensive, whatever it means to you, so that you're feeling like really feeling yourself, right? Like really stepping out there in the world, feeling like you're dressed like you want, you're accessorized like you want. And he has this epithet, Eucaides. It talks about his hair, like his beautiful, beautiful hair. So he can really kind of help you with that sort of glamour of presentation of how do I powerfully walk in the world? Now that I know when to be invisible and when to step forward, how do I have the magnetism? And Hades can help with that. And I think last and perhaps like maybe a really important oh, I have one more, sorry, before I get to the last one, my my mistake, this is important too. So Orcos, if you want to seek justice against oath breakers and or justice for the dead, Orcos, Hades Orcos can help you. And that's important to those of us who are activists, perhaps, who are trying to punch up into powerful structures and really seek justice. Orcos can help with that. Also, with we have so many unjust deaths, so many deaths that are not good, that and so many unsettled dead that it happens all around the world. It happens throughout time too. And we know as magical practitioners, we have the ability to affect change over long distances and through time. So Hades Orcos can really help with that. And I think, so there we go. Wanted to make sure I got that one in. So winding down to another really good reason to work with Hades, because I think this is really healing. For many, many years, I would say probably, gosh, at least the first like almost 20 years of my practice, because I came from a highly patriarchal religion, I sort of rejected sort of more masculine forms of the divine. I'm a hard polytheist, so I certainly believe that they are out there, but I wanted to do some more, I wanted to work more with feminine energies for a very, very long time until I started working with Hades. And my relationship with Hades has really healed my view of incorporating healthy masculinity into my deity practice. And I think that if that's something you're looking for, Hades might be somewhere to start. And, he has the epithet polydegmon, the host of many, which there's also polysemanter, which means receiver of many. So there's this sense of being nurturing and being a safe place and being a welcoming place. And there's also Jubileus, the good counselor, the consoler. So it's something that you could possibly explore if you're looking for that. So for those of you who are keeping track, I told Llewellyn that I was going to give you 5 reasons other than death to work with Hades, but I actually gave you a surprise bonus of 6. So I want to stop there. And I want to go ahead and do questions and comments. Like, what questions can I answer for you? Or if anybody has a experience or comments that they'd like to share in the chat, I will certainly read those as well if you have something that you want to share with the group. So what is going on with you? Let me know. Don't be shy. Let's see. I'm going to just read the chat while we're seeing if anybody has a question. Oh, I see. So interesting. How do you call on Hades? Okay. Well, thank you, Kat. Thank you. Thank you there. Also, I want to address earlier in the chat, I've heard an old story in which Persephone goes to the underworld willingly. I can also address that as well. And how to connect him in daily life or tarot. Those are all great questions. So as far as Persephone, we don't really know exactly what happened. There's no real way to know. The story of the abduction of Persephone is from the Homeric hymn to Demeter, which may or may not have been written by Homer. It could have been written by a other collective of poets who are writing in the style of Homer. And in that story, which is the original recounting, Hades it very much abducts Persephone and takes her to the underworld. It doesn't really tell us what she thinks about this. It is recorded that she lets out a very loud sort of scream or yell. Was she surprised? Was she happy? Was she terrified? We don't really know. There's not a descriptor. I think that it's very, myself included, I am included in this. It's very tempting to fall into sort of the feminist revisionary thinking around this story that Persephone has agency and goes with Hades willingly. And I think that's certainly a component because stories do change over time. But I think that it would be remiss to not also honor this older aspect of the myth. And I think that holding both truths at one time and being in that place where there's a little bit of uncomfortable tension is part of the magic of the Hades and Persephone story. And the reason for that is that it's literally upwards of 3,000 years since that story was originally told. We are still talking about it. We still can't figure out what happened. We still can't figure out what Persephone actually thought about it. And it leads us into really deep conversations about consent, about body autonomy, about the impact of myth and story and how we frame that. And those things make us kinder, more compassionate humans. And that, my friends, is really, really magical. So that's what I have to say about Hades and Persephone. um, that's okay. So let me answer some of the other things. How to connect with Hades in daily life. So, if you are interested in working with Hades and you just kind of don't really, you want to get started, you want to get to know him, the things that I always recommend as like a first kind of entryway into building a relationship with a deity, and this is not only Hades, this could be any deity that you want to court. I recommend, first of all, building an altar. Building an altar welcomes Hades into your space and into your life. It's almost like if you're setting the table for a dinner and you add an extra chair for a guest, right? They know that they're welcome. A chair, a place is set for them with a chair, and they'll come in and they'll start that conversation, start that relationship with you. I also like to offer him a daily acknowledgement or prayer at sunset twilight. That is a very powerful time, a very liminal time for Hades and for the denizens of the underworld. My book has a hymn to Hades in every single chapter. If you want to use those, you certainly can. Or you can write your own. You can write your own intimate little prayer that it's just between you and him. But I recommend those things as kind of entry points and see what comes from there. Yeah, yeah. I have an approach where I offer a lot of regard and a lot of appreciation and respect to deities, but I treat coming into these relationships almost as if I were pursuing a friendship or a partner of some sort. And so I look at them, I try to use what I know and what is loving and successful and healthy about my human relationships. I try to apply it to my deity relationships. Okay, it looks like we've got some more questions here. Been connected to Hades for a few years, realized he's been reaching out since childhood and has been super patient. I've had that experience as well. That resonates with me. He's very patient. He thinks on more of a geologic scale of time. What would I say some signs that Hades is willing to connect with you? That is interesting. So some signs that Hades wants to connect with you. I would say some of you might think this is funny, but consistently finding money and finding money in unexpected places. For example, I was at the craft store and I was looking at these flowers in a bucket, and I actually wanted the bucket, not the flowers, and I wanted to see if the bucket was for sale. So I pulled the flowers out of the bucket to lift it up and to like look around to see if there was a price tag. And in the bottom of the bucket was a quarter. And so when I found that, which is odd because I don't know why there would be a quarter in a bucket that's meant for display. So I said, Care Hades. It means like welcome Hades or thank you Hades. It's just kind of an expression of joy and greeting, because I see that as like Hades, like, yeah, just kind of sending me a little sign. I'm with you. Here's a little bit of wealth. I also think that if you're getting I know this doesn't really happen for me, but a lot of people have like strong associations where there will be like pomegranates sent their way. Sort of like recalling back to the Persephone myth. That didn't really happen for me. Hades called to me in a much more obvious way. But however, I do feel that Hades is someone who if there's been some sort of thread in your life that has to do with some very deep concepts like living and dying, perhaps, or shadowy type of concepts, feeling, I personally, just from my own journey, I don't mind sharing with you. I have generalized anxiety disorder. One of my continual thought loops when I was really, really suffering when I was a younger person was fear of death. And I had to walk with that for a long time. Now, as an older person, I've gone through therapy and done other things, and I've really found ways to work with that. But I look back on that period and I talk about it in the book a little bit with a lot of gratitude because I feel that it taught me a lot about walking hand in hand with death. And now I feel that having some of those experiences, even though they might um, be a little intimidating or frightening, but being able to like pull back and understand them and understand sort of the profound power that something like that has might be a pretty good sign that working with Hades is going to be very powerful for your personal growth and for your magical practice. So let me see what, oh gosh, I've got so many messages now. Okay. Thanks, Conan. Candle lit for Hades, and he seems happy to be hanging out during this talk. How do you know that Hades is opening up to you and responding to your? Okay, I think, I think you need to use your intuition a bit. I think that kind of like in a human relationship, it'll be kind of reciprocal, right? If you're trying to form a friendship with someone and you keep like they're like, like let's go for coffee. Well, let's go for another coffee. Let's go for a walk in the park. Let's text each other. If you're not feeling like you're getting something like reciprocal back, using your intuition, I don't think that means that Hades doesn't like you, but it may not be a good fit for your energy and what you need right now at this current time, or there may be something that's even better coming your way. And if you're not really seeing reciprocity from him, I think it's okay to say, oh, Hades, like, could you maybe suggest like where I need to go? Because he might have some ideas. He might say like, oh yeah, you should definitely, call this person. So, do I use dark or black candles for Hades? I tend to use, well, I mean, I'm kind of a practical witch, so I use mostly whatever color I have. But if I am buying a specific altar for Hades, or I'm trying to create like a very like specific ritual or presentation or things like that, colors I would use for Hades, I would go with gold, silver, gray, black, really dark purple, indigos, really dark blue. All of those seem to work really well for him. Yes, Persephone and Hades very much give wholesome, powerful couple vibes. I hear a lot of talk about Lore Olympus. If people don't know what Lore Olympus is, it's a webcomic by Rachel Smith, and it's on Webtoons, and it's really good. It's really fun. It's kind of like Hades and Persephone fan fiction. What other questions do we have? I think I saw one about connecting with Hades and the tarot. People have a lot of different sort of opinions on who Hades would be in the tarot. Some of them see him as the emperor, some of them see him as death. And different things. I tend to, when I read tarot, I actually don't usually use tarot for a Hades practice. Not that you can't. I think you definitely could. If I were going to connect Hades with a figure in the tarot, I think I would probably choose the Emperor. I would choose the Emperor. Yeah. Yeah, the signs and visions, omens, dreams of someone in the family or a close friend's death. Yeah, yeah, just kind of being connected with the death vibe is probably something that, Hades could probably really help you, like in a supportive manner, to kind of really go into that role and explore it, learn techniques to protect yourself and others, all those kinds of things, like really be a mentor in that. Well, we are almost done. So I just want to give you guys a few ideas about how to connect with me before I sign off. There's the cover of my book, the beautiful people at Llewellyn did for me. And you can connect with me on the web, jamiewaggoner.com. Please sign up for my newsletter so you'll know where I'm going to be and what I'm teaching. And sometimes there's even free stuff. On all the socials, I am at JM Waggoner. And you can order Hades from your local bookstore or llewellyn.com. I also have a teaching project called Way of the Weaver that I teach with my wonderful, wonderful friend Murphy. And we offer radically enchanted classes, events, and communities. And that's wayoftheweaver.com. We have a podcast that drops twice a month. There's an episode dropping tomorrow, in fact, where we chat about magic. And we also give you a tarot forecast for the month. And our next event is Weaver Camp, which is a witchy summer camp for grown-ups in the Vermont mountains. It's happening this month, June 27th through the 30th. So if that sounds like something you might want to do, go to wayoftheweaver.com and check out the details for that, because there's still time to sign up. So I just want to offer so much gratitude to Hades and other unseen ones who might be in attendance today. I want to thank you to the team at Llewellyn for putting together this amazing and totally accessible event. And I want to thank all of you for your time and for your attention. So thank you so much.